Now we're going to be talking health. Health this morning, we're talking about blood sugar.
I like that. I like that.
Know, right?
From water, we go to health.
Yes, exactly.
Dr. Kelvin.
Dr. Kelvin has joined us on this. Why they laugh?
Oh, but a situation with them, they are saying, no more, no.
Can you imagine? He sounds like a wizard.
I know, right?
But that's a beautiful outfit.
Thank you very much. Shout outs to my guy, E Clothing.
We'll bring you, where's your money? We'll bring you the invoice.
No, but he's always got on point.
No, he's sharp. I mean, he doesn't even take measurements anymore. He just looks at you and,
I hope he's looking at me. Does it so for women?
He does.
Well, so I hope you are looking at me. So when we talk about blood sugar, I'm sure it goes beyond you know. So what exactly are we talking about here?
Well, so we are talking about glucose.
Okay.
So when we say blood sugar, we're referring to glucose. You know, I mean, everybody has seen glucose. You know, you've seen that powder that athletes especially would use. You mix with water. That's glucose. Yeah. And so that's the purest form of sugar in quotes. Okay. You know, so there are different kinds of sugar, but the sugar that the body actually uses is glucose. Okay. So whatever you eat, and when I say whatever, I mean everything, whether it's meat, whether it's trophy, whether it's kinky, can eventually be broken down to glucose. Okay. You know, of course, in primary school, we were told that proteins go to amino acids, fats to fatty acids, and carbohydrates then to glucose.
That's the simplistic version.
Well,
we work with that, and so far it's still very good.
Yes, and this is because the primary energy, the primary fuel that the body actually uses is glucose. You know, so when the body now, when you eat the food, the body will now, the stomach digestion, I mean, remember all these things, is eventually broken down to glucose, which is then absorbed, you know, for use as fuel. The other ones, proteins or amino acids, is used differently to produce to build muscles. Then you have the fatty acids which are stored. But eventually, when there's a need, if the glucose levels are low, the body can fall back on the amino acids to then produce glucose to then go through the energy cycle, as we call it. So glucose is the most important fuel for the body. Okay. You know, and so when we talk about blood sugar, we are talking about how much glucose you have in your blood. Okay. Because glucose being in your blood, it's useless in quotes. The glucose is needed in the organs. Yes, in the organs, in the cells, so that the cells can utilize the fuel, the energy in there to function. Okay. So if glucose stays in your blood, it's not going to serve any purpose. So we want the glucose in the cells where they are needed, especially the muscle, because if you are moving, if you are thinking, everything you are doing requires energy, requires fuel. And so the glucose needs to get into these cells so that the body can then make use of it. You know, and for that to happen, we need a very, very important hormone called insulin. And insulin is one of them. I mean, all hormones are important, but insulin more so because the body needs fuel, like I said. And it's insulin that's going to then push the glucose from the blood into the relevant cells for the body to make use of it. Okay. Now, this insulin is produced by a gland called the pancreas. The pancreas is found very close to the stomach, in the abdomen. It's very close to the stomach, and when you eat, the body has sensors, antennae that would signal the pancreas that there's food coming, so prepare. So the pancreas will then start releasing insulin. You know, the insulin is kind of like a key. You know, so when the sugar or glucose gets to its destination, it is insulin that's going to then open the door for the sugar to enter. Okay. And so you see how much of an important role insulin plays. You know, without insulin, the sugar would get to the door, but the sugar cannot enter the cell for the cell to make use of it. Okay. And I've already established that if the sugar stays in the blood, it's useless. So you need the sugar to enter the cell so that the cell can then function. So if insulin is not available, the sugar cannot enter the cell, which means that you are eating, but then you are not
keeping all the sugar in the blood.
Exactly.
Not to the cells.
Exactly. Wow. And so that is why a disease condition that we all know as diabetes is there. And diabetes is a situation where your body is not able to make use of sugar. And so the sugar stays in the blood, not in the cell. And so all the symptoms and signs of diabetes are related to the fact that sugar is not able to go into the cells. You know, and so if we were to check your blood sugar, then it would be high because there's a lot of sugar in the blood. We don't want sugar in the blood. We want sugar in the cells where they are going to function. They are going to play their role.
Right, but what will make sugar stay in the blood?
So, I mean, there are several reasons. And that also gives the different types of diabetes that we have. We have two major forms of diabetes, and type 1 and type 2. Now, type 1 is actually very simple. it means that your body is not producing insulin at all.
Okay.
And remember, we have said that insulin is the key.
Yeah.
So you can own the building, but if you don't have the key, you can
still
enter the
stay
building.
out.
You still stay outside. You know, I mean, those of us, once in a while, when you go out and you mistakenly leave your key in the house, you have to beg somebody to open the door for you. And so that's type 1 diabetes. The pancreas is not able to produce insulin at all. This is usually because there's an autoimmune process that has destroyed the pancreas.
Okay.
This can happen whilst the baby is developing or can happen after birth. In fact, type 1 diabetes is the most common form of diabetes in under 40s, you know, because it starts early. You know, so once the pancreas is not able to produce enough insulin, then the sugar cannot go into the cells, and then the signs, the symptoms which we'll talk about a bit later will come up. Then there's type 2 diabetes, where, and it has been typically called lifestyle diabetes, you know, where you have normal insulin levels, or in fact, sometimes your insulin levels are actually much higher than normal, you know, because the body has noticed that the sugar is in the blood. It's not able to go into the cell. So the body is trying to produce insulin to force the sugar into the cells, but the sugar is not going.
Yeah.
And this is because the insulin that is being produced is probably malfunctioning.
Okay.
And that malfunction is probably because the key has been, the keyhole has been altered
Okay.
by something we call fat.
Wow.
So that is why there's a link between obesity and diabetes, because obesity causes insulin resistance, which is to describe it simply, there's been an alteration in the keyhole, so the insulin is no longer able to open the door.
Yeah.
So then, yes.
So you're saying insulin resistance is the body being not being able to be impacted or affected by insulin properly.
Pretty much. So there's insulin. The insulin is being produced.
Okay.
The pancreas is working.
Yeah.
In fact, in most cases, it's overworking. It's producing more insulin than even necessary, but it's just not able to push the sugar from the blood into the cells.
Okay.
And this is because of that thing called fat, which is preventing the insulin from doing its normal, playing its normal role.
Okay.
And so again, the same issue presents that you have sugar, high sugar in your blood, and so then all the symptoms of diabetes are present again.
Okay.
You know, so blood sugar is very important. Like I said, it's the primary source of energy, it's the primary source of fuel for the body. So it's very, very important, you know. And so if it's not getting into the cell, then some of the symptoms that you notice would be lethargy, that's tiredness. So you notice that, so you will notice that if you were developing diabetes, you'll probably be tired more often.
Yeah.
You know, they may check for anemia, there's no anemia, everything else seems normal, but you are just tired because the sugar, the fuel, is not getting into the cells. And so your muscles are weak. You know, you're not able to function properly. You know, so that's some of the early symptoms that you're going to notice.
But for someone who is not obese, you know, what would cause this?
So, I mean, obesity is an established fact that obesity causes insulin resistance.
Yeah.
However, it doesn't also mean that only people who are obese will develop diabetes, because there are other forms of other causes of diabetes or other associations of diabetes. I mean, hypertension, for instance. If you're hypertensive, you could become diabetic. They move. There's like their family. One holds the door for the other to enter. So if you are hypertensive, it could lead to diabetes as well, and vice versa. If you are diabetic, you could develop hypertension as well. If there's a family history of type 2 diabetes, the chances of you developing it is also high. If sometime during your lifetime you have an issue with your pancreas, it may not have been there. It's not necessarily a type 1, but maybe something happened and the pancreas is affected, you could develop diabetes as well. So obesity is one of the things that you can modify.
Okay.
You know, because yes, you can modify it, you can change it, you know, so that's why there's a lot more talk about obesity, because it's something that, should I say, self-inflicted, you know, I mean, that's why I'm putting it in the air quotes, you know, so you can do something about it. And indeed, if you're able to reduce your weight, the impact on your blood sugar is obvious, it's clear. You know, there are countless people out there who, by reducing their weight, they no longer require medication for diabetes. You know, and so it's important that we establish that there's a direct link between obesity and type 2 diabetes. Very, very important.
So let's look at the symptoms. Beyond tiredness, what else do you look out for?
So all the symptoms that that are related to diabetes are because the sugar is in the blood. So one of the ways that the body tries to remove sugar, what I mean is, if it's not going into the cells, how else can the body get rid of excess sugar? Because excess sugar in the blood is not a good thing. One of the key ways the body tries to do that is to use the kidneys. So it tries to get rid of the sugar through the kidneys. And so in the old days, and even today, you realize that one of the ways of diagnosing diabetes, and every time I make this statement, you know, doctors were actually required to taste your urine.
Yeah.
So if the urine was sugary,
Sweet,
you know, that was diabetes mellitus. That's actually the full name of the diabetes you are referring to.
Okay.
So, but when you just say diabetes, it's accepted that you are talking about diabetes mellitus. There's another type of diabetes which is not related to what we are discussing today.
Okay.
So that's one. So the sugar, the body pushes the sugar into the kidneys excrete it. Now, sugar is a solute. You know, this is now physics, right? It's a solute. So once solute gets into the kidney, it's going to pull a lot of water with it.
Yeah.
So you notice that diabetics pee a lot. I mean, a diabetic can pee 10 times in the night, you know, and every time they go to pee, it's a lot of volume. This is not, we are not talking about short urine.
Yeah.
I mean, short, small volume urine. We are talking about plenty urine. It's called polyuria, you know. And then they have frequency. They urinate so many times because the sugar in the kidney is also drawing a lot of water to themselves. As a consequence of this urination, they also tend to get thirsty a lot.
Yeah.
So they drink a lot of water. So drinking lots of water and urinating a lot, large volume urine, especially in the night, is one of the classic triad of diabetes. So once you have this symptom, you need to check for diabetes.
Okay.
But apart from this, there are other there are other symptoms as well as a result of the blood sugar rising. Your eyes, you know, the sugar, because the body is just forcing the sugar anywhere that it can go. So your lens the lens is a part of the eye where, you know, when the light passes through, it helps you to see. This is one of the areas where the sugar is pushed into. And so one of the things that diabetics suffer from is blurred vision. That's a result of sugar opacifying the lens. You know. Then we have infections. Again, remember, it's not only human beings that like sugar. Everybody likes sugar. Bacteria also like sugar. So because you are urinating sugary urine, there tends to be bacteria who love sugar. So you tend to develop infections in the genital area, like thrush, you know, like bacterial infections, you know, recurrent UTIs. And when you actually get an injury on your skin as well, it doesn't heal well, or it doesn't heal quick, because bacteria again is enjoying the sugar. It's a party for them, you know. And this is part of the reason why diabetics, when they get a foot ulcer especially, they tend to require amputation, because the bacteria is enjoying the party over there. And as a consequence of sugar in the skin, because again the blood is forcing sugar into the skin, the nerves are killed. So that's why, again, diabetics don't feel anything in their extremities. So their feet, their fingers, and for the men, their penis. You know, so impotence, it can be a complication of high blood sugar. And so, in generally speaking, diabetes is not something that you want to develop. You know, and type 1 diabetes would develop within a short window of time, a matter of weeks, you know. So you see this person who was, you know, healthy looking, you know, has a bit of body. Then you see the person a couple of weeks later, very skinny, because the body is trying to find other ways of other energy sources. So it starts breaking down protein, fat, everything, you know. Because I mentioned initially that the other food groups can be used as fuel when the glucose level is not high, you know. But in this case, the glucose level is high, but it's not getting into the cell. So another name for diabetes is starvation in the midst of plenty. Because there's plenty glucose, there's plenty sugar. So why are you starving? You know, so the body is having to use alternate sources of energy because the sugar is not getting into the cell. So they begin to lose weight. And type 1, the weight loss is drastic. Type 2, on the other hand, and this is part of the reason why it's difficult to deal with type 2. It can take up to 10 years to show itself. So gradually, you know, it's eating you, but you're not aware until finally you develop an emergency and you rush to the hospital, by which time probably your leg needs to be cut off, or your eye, you've got cataract because your lens is now opaque, or you have some other complication of diabetes, you know. And so this is one of the diseases that is called the silent killer. You know, we know silent killer is hypertension and diabetes because they don't show themselves until complication arises. So you have to look out for them. That is why it's important to screen yourself, especially if you have a family history or if you yourself are predisposed, like you are overweight. And interestingly, over 60-70% of corporate workers are overweight. Yes.
Wow.
You know, it's over
because of the lifestyle.
Because of the lifestyle. Yes.
Exercise.
And so once you notice that you are overweight, you need to screen yourself for diabetes. You know, you don't even need to be told. Just get yourself checked. Do I have diabetes? Because like I said, it can take up to 10 years. The first time you're probably diagnosed with diabetes is when a complication has been detected.
Which might be too late.
Exactly. You know, and so you want to get ahead of the curve. You need to start healthy lifestyle. You know, this is a new year. We are still early in the year. You know, pick up some healthy habits.
It's still quite early, but you know, giving up, you know, a lot of resolutions, Charlie. It's just I mean, changing calendar and you know dates, and I still ask.
Yeah, but it's a mindset.
We
you know,
try,
because
we try.
The truth of the matter is that living with diabetes is quite expensive. You know, and it's also inconveniencing. I mean, imagine having to jab yourself every morning and evening, you know, just because of diabetes. Something you see, it's not like the type 1 that you can't really do anything about it.
Okay.
If it's in a family and you are going to get it, it doesn't matter how you live your life, you will get it because it's an autoimmune, something that we don't have control over. You know, so type 1, they are treated differently. It's not their fault. But type 2, for all intents and purposes,
it's all your fault.
Mostly your fault. So you really have to try. You know, the predisposing factors will be there. You know, you are working in a corporate facility, you are sitting, you are typing, you are in meetings. It's difficult, but check yourself. Can you go up and down the staircase? You know, instead of using the elevator, can you walk to the station instead of getting Uber right to your doorstep, or get down at the junction and walk to work? You know, be proactive about some of these things. You know.
Just a quick one before we wrap this up. So you're talking about checking yourself and having yourself checked and all that. We have blood pressure monitors, right? And they are portable. You can have them at home, check yourself regularly. Is there something like that for sugar?
I mean, there is. It's just a bit uncomfortable, you know. So the regular person would not necessarily buy a blood sugar monitor because it requires you to prick yourself and actually draw blood.
But what's wrong with pricking yourself and drawing blood?
Well, I mean,
if I have to check my sugar.
Well, I'm not a fan of that, but
exactly.
if I have to check, you know,
maintain.
And you see,
better just get that small pregnant to get an amputation.
Thank you.
Well,
so that's the mindset.
So in that case, then yes, it's available.
I'll need one.
Right. But I'm sure it's not too expensive.
Well, it depends. I mean, it's not as readily accessible as the blood pressure monitors are, you know. But it's available. If you want to get one, you can actually get one.
Awesome.
Right,
but maybe we'll have to carry the conversation beyond here, you know,
definitely,
in getting the monitors as well. So where do we find you on social media?
Kelvin Owusu MD, and on social media, generally everywhere you go, Kelvin Owusu MD, I'm there.
Great, we will find you.
Get in touch with him, right, and get yourself sorted.